All right, so welcome back. So we just finished plotting out the rest of our lines, the rest of our orthogonal and transverse lines on the 3 squares that we had below the horizon. We noted that this is bird's eye view because whenever something is below eye level, you can always see the top of the object, and depending on whether it's in front of your view or to the side of you, you can see some of the side as well, okay? So this is, imagine if it was a street view and you were illustrating shopping malls, like a strip mall or a row of houses running down along here. You would see the front of the house, right? And the side of the house, and then you would do your roof up here. And again, the roofs would slowly get smaller and smaller and smaller as you went to the vanishing point as well. Okay, so let's do the top now. We did a few shapes above the horizon, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the corners and bring them to the vanishing point. Okay, and again, you can choose to bring this one in, but oftentimes if it's going to run through the shape, it just means you wouldn't see that if it was an opaque object. Okay, but just for fun, let's imagine that this is a clear box. I'm just going to do a dotted line so that you know what's in the background. Okay, and we're going to use some, so these are our diagonal orthogonal lines. When you're pulling those diagonal lines back to the vanishing point, these are our orthogonal lines. And you can even make a note of that, maybe in an empty space down here. Okay, orthogonal. orthogonal. And like I said, you want to keep your orthogonal lines fairly light because you end up erasing them, right? You want to just be left with whatever form it is that you were figuring out in perspective, but you don't need those lines going into the back. So when you're doing, you know, your final drawing, you're designing your room, you want to erase all of that mess that you have as you go. Okay, but that is the orthogonal line. I'm just going to keep that so I know what I'm pointing to here. Okay, so we have our orthogonals figured out here. Now we're going to use our transverse lines, meaning those parallel lines. So this one comes down a bit, and they're parallel, meaning they're going in the same direction. And then now I'm going to bring this side down to the same point, but I have to keep it parallel with this. Just going to shift it. Okay, voila. You'll notice if it's off a little bit, you can always go back and like fix it up. All right, so now that this object is above us, we can see the front of the object, we could see the bottom of the object, and we can see a little bit of the side of the object here, okay? And again, these are orthogonal lines, and transverse lines are these. They're kind of those parallel cutoff lines. Transverse. All right, and let's not forget, actually, we can even label our vanishing point. That's that little point here. I'm going to point to it. Vanishing point. And this is your horizon line. Maybe here. Horizon line. Okay. So anyways, we have this one figured out. This one is just above the vanishing point. So this is like just above our head if we were, you know, in this scene. So we're going to take the corners of the square Bring them down. Okay, similar to the one below, you're not going to have, again, unless it's a clear box, you're not going to have to do the inner corners because they run through the object. So let's just like ignore them. You just ignore them for now. We're going to imagine that this is a solid structure, a solid form, or an opaque form. Okay, you're going to take this and just bring it down and make a parallel line in the distance. So this would be like the bottom of the box. You can imagine if this is like a box-shaped lamp, maybe like a really modern lamp from IKEA, and it's got like a light bulb in here that's shining. Right? So we see the front of the form and we see the bottom. Okay, we don't see the sides in this case because it's kind of in front of our view. So now let's move to the one on the side here. We're going to take the points, bring them back to the vanishing point. And then use our transverse lines. Okay, and again, I would see the front of the object, and I would see a little bit of the side of the object here because it's to the right of me, and because it's above my eye level, I'll see a bit of the bottom. Okay, so last but not least, we're gonna do the middle row. These are things that are right at our eye level. So this is at our eye level, but to the left of us. So I'm gonna take the points on the exterior of the square here, bring them back with my orthogonal lines. If I do these, they're going to be kind of the corners that you wouldn't see unless it's a clear object, right? So really you don't always even need those. Okay, and I'm going to take my transverse lines and decide how far back I want to go with this. And that's basically it for this one. I don't see the top and I don't see the bottom of it, right? Because it's right at eye level. So I'm going to see the front of this one and a little bit of the side of this one because this one is at eye level. And I'm going to write eye level here on the side. Okay, so this one is bird's eye view. This one is eye level on the horizon. And I forgot to label the top one. This one here is worm's view. And we were joking last week, we're actually saying, I used to, actually a lot of artists still call it worm's eye view, but I'm not sure if worms actually have eyes. And we took a break and we researched and found out that they actually don't. Okay, so worm's view, and we can say bird's eye view for down here. Okay, because with worm's view, again, we could see the bottom of things. And insects are always looking up. Okay, meanwhile, birds are always looking down and they can see the tops of things below us. Okay, let's go to this side. We have this square here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the exterior corners and bring them to the vanishing point. Okay, and then I'm going to decide how far back I want this to go. So here I can see the front of the object and this side because, again, the viewer is here looking out into the distance here. And last but not least, I left this one to the end because I didn't want to go over top of a vanishing point. But if you had a box that was right in front of you at eye level, it would just look like a square, right? You wouldn't see the top, you wouldn't see the bottom, you wouldn't see the left or the right side of it. You would only see the face value, the front of it, okay? So again, things to remember whenever you're looking at something that is above eye level or above the horizon, you can always to some extent see some of the bottom of it. And when something is below eye level or below the horizon, you can always catch some of the top of the object. Okay, and when things are right at eye level, you can only see the sides. So now imagine that this is like, try to imagine, let's use our imagination. Try to think that this is a kitchen, right? This is an illustration of a kitchen. Here you've got the kitchen counter. Maybe this is the stove, right? And it's running against the wall towards the back of the room. And you've got, you know, the kitchen here. Maybe you have an island here, a kitchen island or a dining room table. And then you've got cupboards lining the walls, right? You can start to imagine this. So if this was an illustration of a kitchen and the cupboards were at eye level, we wouldn't see the top or the bottom of the cupboard, but we would see the top of the stove. We would see the top of the rest of the, oh my gosh, I'm at a loss for words. The workspace here. You would see the top of the island or the table here. Okay, and again, you wouldn't see the top or the bottom of the cabinets necessarily. If there was a light fixture hanging off of the ceiling, you would see the bottom opening a bit. Maybe you could see the light bulb exposed. Maybe it's like a lantern. If you had any cabinets that were really high on the wall, like say this was a really tall, let's see, I don't know, maybe it's a pantry. Maybe this was a tall pantry space with a refrigerator in it. Okay, and then there was a cabinet like mounted way above. You might see the bottom of the cabinet in that case, right? Depends on where things are mounted, how high above eye level they're mounted. Okay, but you can start imagining how you can apply this knowledge to kind of a real world scenario where you're illustrating a space, whether it's an interior space or an exterior space, using 1-point perspective to help create depth and kind of a realistic space. Okay, so that's the basis of 1-point, kind of in a really basic layman's terms way of explaining it. Actually following along with my video and with these steps and doing it really helps you make sense of it. Okay, so if you haven't yet, do a little diagram of this for yourself. And again, you can label this 1-point perspective. All right, because everything is vanishing towards 1 point.